Welcome to Signal 11 Outdoors Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Really don't need to say his name, but NFL absolute legend, Brett Favre. Brett, how are you?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while.
Yeah, thanks for I appreciate it greatly that you're giving us some time today. So we're gonna
Well,
we're gonna jump.
that's what retired life is like. I,
Yeah,
I
I
got I
got
got
you.
more time than I know what to do with.
Good. Well, some people will be jealous of you, and others don't realize how hard it is sometimes. I did 26 years on a fire department, retired, and I had to deal with that stress of leaving such an action-packed, fun job with camaraderie. But this hunting business that I'm involved in is keeping me busy and my kids. So,
Well,
uh,
that's good. And speaking of your hunting product, I've used it. You've sent me some. I've had some success with it. And you and I were talking before we recorded. You know, deer are way smarter than we are. So I think that's kind of the lure with deer hunting. It's like you really feel like you've done something when you outsmarted this animal. So I appreciate you letting me use your product.
yeah, well, it works the other way too. I appreciate you giving it a try. And as we're going to go through a couple things, and I'll bring up later for the people that are watching how I got to even reach out to you and all, because it's kind of an interesting aspect as well. But today we're talking hunting. We might touch on some fishing, but this is what we're talking about. This is what I do. I'm kind of new to this, and I'm really excited because I personally didn't find a lot of stuff to watch with you talking about hunting, but the couple things I did find were cool because people know you from football, but we also want the guys that are into the hunting. We know you're a hardcore bow hunter. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to just start quickly. What I like to ask a lot of people: how did you start off? Did somebody drag you in the woods at a young age, or did you find it on your own, or friends, or?
Yeah, great question, Steve. And it's really interesting how it all played out for me. I grew up in South Mississippi, two brothers and a sister. We we I mean the nearest neighbor may have been 5 miles away, and we lived on a half a mile dirt road uh, that had woods on both sides, a river out in front with alligators and snakes and snapping turtles and eh, all the things that you can imagine that South. I basically grew up 50 minutes from downtown New Orleans, but it was in Mississippi. Um, Not a lot of deer, believe it or not. Not where I lived, even though there was plenty of woods, lots of cover. My dad was a bird hunter. When he wasn't coaching, he coached baseball and football. He did that for 35 years. I don't remember us ever going. I remember going fishing with him a couple of times. I remember going on a few bird hunts. He had a dog that was was trained for quail,
Mhm.
and so I did that. So I never deer hunted. Basically, my upbringing was geared around sports, baseball and football. So were my two brothers. And that's, when we wasn't doing one, we were doing the other. So, and as you can imagine, South Mississippi doesn't get very cold. And to me, cold or at least cooler weather and hunting go hand in hand. So, so I get a scholarship to play at Southern Miss. I go up there. Nothing really changes uh, much differently than high school and junior high. Didn't hunt. Was focused on football and school, and then I get drafted in Atlanta, and then I get traded to Green Bay. So there's where I got the hunting bug, and here's how I got it. So my wife's sister is about 3 or 4 years younger than us, and she was dating this guy, uh, Josh. His name's Josh, and they eventually got married. Josh, his dad ran heavy equipment, did dirt work, just ran heavy machinery and had cows and was, that's kind of what he did. And so Josh never played any sport in his life. When he was in the third grade, his dad bought him a little Toyota used four-wheel drive in the third grade. And he basically helped his dad. He was running a dozer or a traco. And when they wasn't doing that, they were hunting. So when I get traded to Green Bay, Josh reaches out to me and says, hey, is there any good hunting ground up there? And I was like, I mean, hell, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. So he says, well, I think Christy and I are coming up for a game, and, I'd love to bow hunt somewhere. So there was a guy that I became friends with in my neighborhood in Green Bay that had a roughly 900 acres, about 30 miles south of Green Bay. And you didn't have to, Lambeau kind of was the center of Green Bay, which is very small. And so it didn't take you but a few miles from Lambeau in any direction, and you were in farm land, prime hunting. I mean, there was good deer in the city limits. So he comes up, my buddy who I mentioned had the 900 acres. I set Josh up with him. His name's Bill. And Josh went out there and said, this is like deer hunting Mecca.
Nice.
And so the following year, he buys me a bow. It was my first bow ever. And I was like, I don't know anything about bow hunting. I really don't know anything about hunting in general. Never really cared. But in Green Bay, there's not a lot to do other than you can golf, but that usually closes about November, first week in November.
Right.
And there's hunting or drinking. Yeah. And so Josh said, come on, let's go bow hunting. So the first time I went bow hunting, we practiced some in the backyard of the house. I ended up shooting an 8-point. And I thought, being the first deer I'd ever killed, this was bullwinkle. Now as I look back, those pictures, I mean, I've graduated to getting bigger and better deer, and being more patient and letting a lot walk. That was like, I suppose you could go one of two ways. You could harvest an animal and be, all in, or you could say, not my cup of tea. I did it, been there, done that. I got hooked. And so from there, it just took off. I bow hunted, I gun hunted. Gun season in Wisconsin is 9 days. So you don't have a lot of time. But there's a lot of time to bow hunt. And if I remember correctly, it's sort of the same in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time not killing deer, but just being out in the woods, which is something I did as a kid. I was always, we were playing ball, we were running through the woods, we were exploring. And it was so peaceful for me to get back into that setting. I can't tell you how many stands I put up or moved, cameras, would plant little food plots, just strategically trying to outsmart them. Most of the time it was the other way around.
Right.
But it gave me a release from football. So I could get away from all the stress and just go out there. And I remember one of the first times I'm bow hunting, I'd never seen a porcupine in my life. There's none in Mississippi. And one climbs up the tree. And I'm thinking, one of us has to go down. And I'm hoping it's I almost shot it, but it ended up turning around and going back down. And it was just cool, to see there were animals that porcupine, one of them, that I think they were called fishers or marmots or mink.
Right.
We don't have those. So
Right.
seeing nature at its best in its setting I was hooked, and I've never wavered to this day
Yeah.
when it comes to hunting and being out in the woods and the outdoors.
Yeah. Wow. I'll tell you that what you just said there is really cool because, me and probably most people who watch this, unless they're really friends with isn't going to know that. So it's cool to hear the way you explained it because a lot of times I'll hear about the kid that got dragged out by his dad or his uncle at a young age. It just kind of became part of life, and sometimes they lose interest and then gain it back. But with you, it was such a relief for you from the stresses of everything you were doing in sports to get
Right.
out there in the woods. And I mean, if people who don't hunt can't even understand the tranquility of being in the deer stand or doing some scouting on your own and the nature and what we see out there that you don't see unless you're out there. And then for
Right.
you, huge contrast from what you're doing for a living, and then getting to go do that to relax. That's pretty cool to hear that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Sundays at Lambeau was, about it's kind of like Mardi Gras, but in a arena.
Yeah.
But then the following day, I could be in a tree stand, and it couldn't be any different. I mean, it was as peaceful as you could possibly get. And
Right.
just 24 hours before, it was as hectic and as stressful
Sure.
as it could possibly get. So
Sure.
it was
Yeah.
it was a nice trade-off.
Yeah, man. It's great that your buddy was into hunting and was doing what I would do with a friend that doesn't hunt. I would do the same thing. I'd be like, hey, dude, that guy have any hunting property over there we could check out?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that was a blessing right
Yeah,
there.
no question. And Josh, I can't tell you how many times we've hunted all over the place. And in fact, last night we were at Josh and Christy's house for Easter, and he said, "You want to go turkey hunting with me and my dad? We're leaving early in the morning. We're going to Texas." And I'm not a big turkey hunter, and I think the biggest reason why is it's hot down south,
Yeah.
and I don't want to sit on a rattlesnake.
Yeah.
So I said, "Y'all go," because where they're going in Texas, it's going to be 90 degrees.
Oh yeah.
So I said, I'll wait for deer season.
Yeah. I got you. But you have turkey hunted?
I have turkey hunted
Yeah.
on our place here. We built a place on 465 acres. Used to have a lot of turkeys, and
Yeah.
the adjacent property is where they seem to congregate now. Because
Okay.
when Katrina hit, it blew a lot of my big trees down,
Mhm.
and I think all the roosted trees were gone. So
Yeah.
they went over to where they, like in Texas, where my brother-in-law's going, they roost on power lines because the
Yeah.
mesquite trees are the tallest trees, and they're 10, 12 feet tall.
Hmm.
So I used to get up and listen to them, gobble, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like an elk bugling.
Yes.
If you've never heard that or been in that setting, it's it's about as cool as it gets. I
Right.
hear one gobbling, hear one bugling. Uh, you know, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Definitely. So realistically, from I'm thinking about it. It's not a really long time that you've been bow hunting, but it's still a lot of years, but not compared to how old we are. But
Correct.
so you got me thinking now because how did you evolve like just in the bow hunting aspect that you love to do? Are you a guy that I'm just thinking, or are you a guy that has to have a different bow every year, or do you like your old faithful? Do you hunt differently than you probably hunt a little differently than when you started?
Yeah, yeah. I'm reluctant to say I'm smart. I think the beauty of hunting or the ugliness of hunting is we've scared way more deer away.
Yes.
whether directly or indirectly, you know, getting up in a tree stand, making a lot of noise, not playing the wind right. Uh, you know, your equipment malfunctions because you didn't check it out before. But I'll give you an example. I'm bow hunting on this 900 acres my friend has, and now I'm into it, you know, full tilt. I mean, this is probably 8 years later, and I get done with Friday practice about 12:30, and I rush out to the woods. About the time and I had a lock on that was way down on the river bottom, so I could park as close as I could park was probably a quarter of a mile walk. So you know, I know that I'm liable to steer something getting in there, but I got to get in there.
Yeah.
I get up in the tree, and I had sat down and I hung my bow up, and it starts snowing, which, you know, you're in Green Bay, and it's real heavy, you know, kind of a damp snow. And it was cool. It wasn't super cold.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm, you know, out in the open, and I'm getting a lot of snow that's accumulating on me, but I'm not, you know, I'm like, this is pretty cool. And there was a trail that I'd put this lock on. I could see the bend in the river. I mean, it was a perfect spot. And I'm watching 2 or 3 does 100 yards out, just milling around. And it's about to rut. So every once in a while, I would check back and see if anything was coming down the trail. And I happened to look back, and at the time, it was the biggest buck I'd ever seen. He was a 13 point. What he would have scored, I don't know, probably 180. Wow. So my heart's, I mean, it's pounding. So he's 50 or so yards, just kind of slowly coming towards the does on this trail. And I grab my bow, get turned around, and I'm getting ready to pull it back. And I realize the peep sight is completely full of snow.
Oh.
So I try to blow it off, and it won't. It's kind of icy.
Yeah.
It's now the deer is like 20 yards from me, and has no clue I'm there. I'm not making any noise. So I pull the bow back, and I put my mouth around the peep sight to try to thaw it out. Well, that made it even worse. Now it's like looking through Coke bottle glasses.
Yeah.
And finally, I had no choice. I took just a random shot, and shot maybe, you know, because it was like looking through goggles. And long story short, I miss him. I watch him walk off, and I learned, you know, learned the hard way. You know, and we can both probably fill up this, you know, this show on those type of, you know, mishaps or things that you didn't foresee. But yeah, that one will live in, you know, in my mind forever.
Yeah.
But, you know, so, you know, I think the thing about hunting, as you evolve, a good hunter was not a good hunter from the start.
Right.
And so, you know, your products, there's a time to use them. There's a time not to use them. Knowing when is always a challenge. You know, so that's like the wind. You know, I tell people all the time that are kind of hunters, but not. I'm like, you're not going to outsmart a deer's nose. Right. I mean, you better be pretty damn good if you're going, you know, if you got this one buck you've been hunting and he's, you know, 4 or 5 years old, you know, he's been around the block. And so he's just not going to walk out there and say, hey, here I am. I mean, you got to really do your homework. And, you know, going out when the wind's not right and screwing it up and saying, I never, you know, or rattling horns and going, you know, I'm standing up and look, I don't see anything. And the buck has been watching you the whole time, you know, and you don't know it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the beauty of hunting.
It is. It is. And sometimes when you talk to guys who, even if they are hunting, even if they don't you know, if they think they're really good at hunting, sometimes you'll talk to guys and you'll hear stories and you'll ask your friend, well, you know, could it be this or could it be that? And they're like, no, I never thought of it, never thought about that. But you're right. A lot of times, all you got to do is get picked off once, whether it's with the wrong wind or the leaves are starting to come down and you could see like 30 yards, but that buck gets at the right spot, knows where your stand is because he's seen you move before.
Yeah.
And he'll sit there for 20 minutes to make sure you're not moving. If you're moving, he turns around and walks away, and you just think, there's no deer in the area.
Exactly.
But they got you pegged, though.
Exactly. There's no way. It's endless. I'm sure of the times that you would say, I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, but they saw you, or they heard you, or they smelled you, and you had no clue. How you go into the stand.
Yes.
Sometimes you got it. It's easy to get in and out. It's quick. I remember one of my favorite stories about hunting. I had to put a lockup in New Jersey, and I'd hunted it a few times, and then I went maybe 2 weeks or something without going to the stand, and so I decided to go to this particular spot. And when I get up, and it was a lock on, but the seat was folded down. Right. So when I raised the seat up, I'd heard about flying squirrels, but I didn't know if they were, I'd never seen one. So I was like, I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah. Well,
there was like a nest of flying squirrels, and I almost fell out of the stand because it scared the living crap out of me. But that was, I told people, like, flying squirrels are real. Yeah. I mean, they came soaring out and scared the living daylights out of me. And needless to say, I didn't see any deer that day because I pretty much shit my pants.
I bet.
So, that's the cool thing about hunting. You do it long enough, there's going to be those stories of, like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Well, since that's cool. And, well, like you said, sometimes you'll be sitting there and a hawk will come down, who knows how fast, and pick off a squirrel and scare the crap out of you. And then you realize how lucky you are to just have witnessed something that most people don't see.
Only a wild, back in our younger days, a Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's the only place you would see something like that.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
So,
you're right.
That's the beauty of being out in the woods in that setting.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, Brett, you mentioned New Jersey, so I was gonna ask you a little bit about New Jersey later. I'm in New Jersey. My business is in New Jersey, and we're kind of a local New Jersey. I'm a national brand, but I'm a New Jersey guy. So I wanted to bring up New Jersey, but since you mentioned it, I'm going to bring it up. I want to ask you about hunting in New Jersey because I know you did, and I just want to preface that just to let some people know that years ago I worked for the Jets for quite a few years. I was there when you came to the Jets. I worked in the security division there. I was still a firefighter at the time, but it was a part-time job. And the cool thing about it when you came there, obviously the word was out. Brett's coming to the Jets. I thought it was cool, but one of the first things that struck me about seeing you there, and I mean, in passing we would say hello, but I know you don't remember me from them because I was about 100 pounds lighter too. But beside that, one of the cool things from an outsider view of it with the Jets was there was guys there, and obviously Brett knows this, and he's played with multiple teams, but there was guys there that had all these fancy cars, and they literally had detailers come into the parking lot and cleaning their cars, and then you'd roll in with the pickup truck. And for me, when I'd see you coming down the road, coming toward us, I'd be like, let me see how much mud he's got on the truck today.
Yeah.
Because I knew you were hunting, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very obvious. So I want to ask you about your thoughts on hunting in New Jersey. I mean, from what I heard from a friend of ours that I'm not even sure if you know who he is, but I know you know him, Freddie Frisco. Do you remember Freddie?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Freddie had said to me once, He goes, if you ever talk to Brett, just tell him to tell you the story about his first time hunting in Jersey, how he emptied his quiver. He goes, he emptied his whole quiver that day. So I don't know exactly what went on, whether it was a whole bunch of misses or hits or what, but Freddie was telling me about
Yeah,
that.
well, I one hit for sure. It was if I remember correctly, it was an 8 point, which as and I try to tell people who are just getting in the hunt, they're like, you kill a 16 point, wow, but a 16 point could be like this,
Yeah.
and a 6 point could be gigantic.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the points; it's the width, it's the mass, it's the height, and to each his own. Everyone has, their favorite type of antlers. But this one it was a really big, wide 8 point, if I remember correctly. And I, I'm assuming it was 4 arrows. I can't remember, but yeah, I emptied it, and I think and Freddie would probably remember this. I didn't find him right away. In fact, I didn't find him. I think Freddie found him maybe a week or two later. And I was bummed. I had to go back to meetings or whatever. And all I could think about was, did I get this buck?
Right.
And again, I think Freddie found him a couple of weeks later. And he was a good deer.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think Freddie said to me, he said, Brett, actually, I guess you flew out to a game after you shot the deer. This is the way Freddie was telling me. And I guess he ended up looking for the deer. And he's like, Brett called me during halftime of the game to ask me if I found the deer. And I don't know if that's true or not, but
I can't remember, but that would not be out of the realm of possibility. Got 20 minutes to spare. Let me see if he found it.
I love it. That's awesome. And being a hunter, any hunters that watch this know exactly.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise him.
Yeah, there wouldn't be surprised at all, because for you it might have been halftime of a National Football League game, but for somebody else it might have been at their kid's rehearsal doing something on stage, and tells his wife, "I got to run to the bathroom real quick." Calls his buddy, "Hey, did you find that?"
Yeah, exactly.
We've all been there, man. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
How about Brett? How about one other story that I'm going to bring up, which is kind of a New Jersey thing, I think. I'm not sure if it's even true, but was there a time when a turkey ended up hanging in somebody's locker or something like that? Or
now that one I don't remember.
Okay, because I had heard that from the building, that they found the turkey hanging in one of the players' lockers, like as a joke, and I just assumed it had to be you, because unless somebody ran over a turkey coming in.
No, I wouldn't waste it. I'd make sure you got fried or something. I'm not gonna hang it up. But that's something I would have done, but I don't recall that.
Okay, gotcha. Now I just want to ask you, for the bow hunters out there. I mean, you said you gun hunt too, but for the bow hunters, what kind of poundage are you shooting right now?
Well, I switched to a Raven crossbow.
Okay.
And
okay.
Those things are amazing. There's nothing like shooting a compound bow.
Right.
And when the Raven came out, a friend of mine, an older gentleman that I used to go up to Illinois and hunt at his place, he turned me on to this Raven, and he's like, it's like shooting a rifle.
Right.
You can shoot up to 100 yards. And I mean, that thing's a missile.
Yeah.
But it's real light. It's real compact. It's easy to carry. You're not getting it caught on briars and limbs. And so I've kind of graduated to that. But I've yet to kill one with it. I've had it probably 3 or 4 years. Bow season down here is a lot different than like Wisconsin or New Jersey. So gun hunting, you can hunt for 2 months, and you can bow hunt about the same.
Right.
So when and I'm sort of this way anywhere else. So like if, you know, we went to say Wisconsin or Minnesota or Iowa or Kansas or Kentucky, and I could do either gun or bow, I'm gonna take my gun because I love the bow hunt, but I don't want to see bullwinkle, you know, walking out there just out of range, and I don't have a shot at it. Uh, but when you take, whether it be a crossbow or a compound bow, when you take up an animal, you really feel like you've done something. I don't want to say that shooting a gun is almost like stealing because I've missed my share with the gun. But there's something about bow hunting, and I've been around those that said only bow hunt, and I get it, I really get it. But I've had my, you know, the peep sight deal. You know, I mean, I've had those moments where I was like, I wish I'd have had my gun. So when when I have that opportunity, I usually take advantage of it and take the gun.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, in New Jersey,
But
again,
you know,
it's similar.
in New Jersey, and this is not to cut you off, but this is
No,
something
go
that
ahead.
you may have been about to say. There's not a lot of places you can shoot a gun a long ways. In
Right.
fact, I never hunted in a place where I could see. I mean, I was like in thick woods, and if you'd have told me prior to going to New Jersey that there would be thick woods, all I, you know, from being from Mississippi, I pictured New Jersey being New York City.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, there are parts that are concrete jungle, but there's, you know, you go out towards Bedminster and out by Woody's,
Yeah.
man, it's as country, if not more country than Mississippi. So uh, you're better off with the bow.
You're right. And interestingly, you're like you described what somebody who's not from New Jersey thinks of New Jersey. Everybody says the same thing. They know Newark Airport and they know refineries along the turnpike. But up, not only up here, but I'm up in Sussex County where I'm almost in New York State and Pennsylvania. I moved here for a reason because this is the kind of area I want to live in. It is great hunting, and it is heavily wooded, mountainous. I mean, we have everything here: hunting, fishing. Whether you're into riding a motorcycle in the back roads, we have it all here. And then, we're literally 40 minutes away from Manhattan, so it's
Yeah,
kind
so
of a
you can
great
get,
mix.
if you want to go get your Manhattan fix on, you
Yeah,
can do that. So uh,
exactly.
uh, one of my dear friends lives here in town. Uh, he's the back and neck specialist at the orthopedic hospital, and he's from uh, I can never think of the town in Pennsylvania, but he said he's 3 hours from where we lived in New Jersey, and so
Right.
you know, he was telling me about he was very keen on where I lived in that area, uh, and he said the same thing. He loves to hunt and goes back home and hunts, and he said if I wanted to go to Pittsburgh or I wanted to go to New York and see the city, I could do that, the same day. Uh, but I could also be in thick woods the same day. So you got the best of both worlds, at your disposal.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the long shots in New Jersey. They don't allow New Jersey does not allow rifle hunting. Okay, but yet we're not much different than Pennsylvania, New York State, where you are allowed. So our guns. The only time you can use a rifle is coyote hunting, up to I believe it's up to 25 caliber certain seasons, but not for deer. So we are slug gun hunters. If you want a single projectile at a distance, your 20 gauge slug gun rifled, barreled slug gun, or your muzzle loader. That's kind of our long range, and you could reach out 100 plus. I
True.
mean, 150 plus if you know your weapon. But that's just the way Jersey is. So the
Yeah,
bow
well,
is a really
Wisconsin was
big
the
thing.
same thing,
Yeah,
as I understand it, I think they still are. It's shotgun or muzzle loader, uh, and let's see, Illinois, same thing.
Right.
And Mississippi, you can shoot pretty much what you want. You can shoot a tank if you can get it out there. That was a little different. I remember
Yeah.
going to Iowa. The only time I ever hunted Iowa, we made band drives, which was really cool. But you could only hunt with a slug gun, and I can't tell you how many times I shot at trophy bucks that were running. Some that even stopped for a brief second. That I didn't have time to range it, but that slug, after about 70, 80 yards, who knows where it's going to go? And I was slinging lead, man, but never cut a hair.
Years ago, I mean, it's quite a few years ago, but years ago, the slug guns were smoothbore barrels. You had a rifled slug, which really didn't mean a whole hell of a lot. So after, like you said, after 70 yards, you were kind of just a lot of luck needed to be in the game. But now, the new muzzle loaders and the new slug guns, especially the smaller stuff, is really accurate.
Well, I'm kind of the opposite. So we got into, I say we, my brother-in-law Josh, my buddy Jay, who I mentioned, the doctor. We go hunt in different places. We go hunt in Texas. We've hunted in Kansas. We've hunted in Illinois. 2 years ago, we went on elk hunt in Idaho, and we've gotten into long range shooting. Down in South Texas, you can shoot way further, than you can here in Mississippi. Kansas, you can see forever. There's no trees.
Yeah.
Idaho, I killed an elk at 800 yards,
Wow.
and never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd ever take a shot that far or even consider shooting that far. And your general rifle that you can go buy over the counter in your factory, just regular scope. I'm not going to say you can't get one at 400 or more yards, but it's sort of like the shotgun. You're kind of at the mercy of, it's a wing and a prayer. But when you get like long range rifle barrels and either hand load, your own, where you know exactly what this bullet is capable of. My brother-in-law, he loves to reload, and he's like the mad scientist. I mean, he's testing out everything. So when you get it right, you've got the right scope and the right equipment. It's pretty cool. I mean, shooting something at 800 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, you still got to be steady. If you're standing freehanded and you're shooting 800 yards, I'm gonna bet the farm you're gonna miss.
Yeah.
But if you can get on a bipod or get perched up and
Right.
and secure, you can make that shot. And so it's sort of like bow hunting, but a lot different. You feel like you've really done something when
Right.
and it's cool to take that shot.
Sure. And it's also nice to transition from the bow type of mentality in hunting in range to a gun. I enjoy it. I mean, I wish I could go rifle hunting and try to take a 500-yard shot. And when I say try to take it, obviously I'd be doing a lot of practice before I went and hunted
Correct.
like that. But so in New Jersey, when the bow season pretty much runs from mid-September until March, believe it or not, mid-March in certain zones. That's a long season.
Wow.
And then the gun, the shotgun, the muzzle loader, and the coyote hunting, which you can use an AR for, that's mixed in there. So I like to put the bow down and take the gun out, even though you could still hunt with the bow.
Right.
But I like to transition because it is nice. It's different gear. We love practicing and preparing for it, and it's a little different mentality. So I agree with you. I think it's nice to do both.
Yeah, I agree. And we, as I mentioned, my brother and several of my buddies and brother-in-law, I look forward to when it's time to start getting the gun out and start practicing. Um, and we've gone in all the places I mentioned, Texas. what's great about Texas, there's a lot of deer. There's not a lot of big deer, but there's always something to shoot at. I mean, there's javelinas, there's hogs, there's coyotes. And so you're constant. I mean, I bring 3 boxes of bullets and can go through them. Where I may go to Kansas or Illinois and come back with the same bullets I loaded. I haven't shot one time. So, shooting at a coyote at 1,000 yards is a hell of a lot of fun. Whether you hit it or not, it's pretty cool.
Right. No, that is. So do you enjoy going to some outfitters? I mean, obviously you go. Do you enjoy that?
Yeah, the elk hunt was an outfitter, but other than that, we usually do our own deal.
Oh, okay.
And I enjoy doing the outfitter thing, but we kind of like to, there's sometimes when you with an outfitter, maybe you don't want to go out at this time, and they're like, we all go out at the same time. There's pros and cons. Sometimes we just like, we may be, for example, in Kansas like 5 years ago, and we're there all week, and the weather's not great, so we don't go that morning, or we don't go in the afternoon. Maybe we just chill, or we go scout out a couple other areas. So that's kind of the beauty of having your own little niche versus an outfit.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's cool. I mean, listen, keep it in the back of your mind. If you ever want to come out to Jersey, we could probably get you on a bear. I mean, this is the mecca of black bear hunting. I don't care if people think it's Canada, New Jersey right now. I mean, there's some incredible amount of black bears and some really big ones out here still.
Yeah, that's something I've never done. And I can't say it's on my bucket list, but neither was mountain lion hunting. And I did that.
Yeah.
An opportunity came up, and me and my buddy Jay, the doctor, we went out to Cedar City, Utah. And I had zero clue what mountain lion hunting entailed. So the guy we stayed with kind of gave us the rundown. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to get up at 4 a.m. We're going to drive an hour and a half. A couple of my guys are going to help us. They're going to load the horses and mules. And I kind of raised my eyebrow, like, horses and mules. He said, we're going to ride probably 15 to 25 miles up and down the mountain. And I grew up riding horses, but it had been 25, 30 years since I'd ever even considered getting on a horse. And we ride up and down the mountain. We see one track, my butt and hips are killing me. And lo and behold, we load up everything. I thought we were heading back. We kept riding down these dirt roads. We see a track. He gets one of his dogs out. It gets on the scent, and all hell broke loose. And it was, let's just say this. I'm glad I did it, but I don't really want to do it again. It was work.
Gotcha.
I mean, we were running through the worst terrain, and it was icy, but it was in March, so it was starting to thaw. Right. And so you were falling in snow holes, and my pants were cut up. I'm beat from, actually I rode a donkey. It was a mule. And the old saying, stubborn as a mule, I learned why that became a phrase, because she went wherever she wanted to go, not where I wanted her to go. Yeah. And she went through the thickest terrain. But we each, we got a mountain lion, and it was, so I envisioned, I know bear hunting's a little different. I've never done it, but I've talked to people who've done it. They're pretty wily, maybe more so than a deer. Mountain lion, you just got to find one in the area. And the cool thing about that was watching the dogs. You know, they're unbelievable. They climb trees after the cats. I've seen it. So there's a lot of things out there that I'd like to do a sheep hunt, I think, where you're up in the mountain roughing it. You may have a shot that's all the way across the mountain. But you got to work to do it. And, there's I think there's a lot of fun in that, even though, it was the hardest thing I ever did. So the bear, I may take you up on that sometime.
Yeah, well, it's it's cool because like for me, I have a bear in my living room on the wall, and from New Jersey, and probably I'll be honest with you, I probably was that was years ago, and I wasn't going to really go for another one because it's a lot of work, Not only to get the bear, it's a lot of work to get a really good bear, but it's a lot of work after you shoot the bear, and then to get it mounted is a whole expensive and so. But years have passed since I shot that bear, and I did an interview with a guy in New Jersey that just shot a really big bear. It's possibly a world record. They're waiting for it was 770, I believe, dressed. But the interesting thing is what you said. A lot of people don't realize. So New Jersey's loaded with bears. I happen to live in Sussex County, the hotbed of black bears. And yeah, if anybody, I'm more interested in putting somebody else on a bear and prepping the area and getting them ready than myself getting one. But what I was going to say is, you mentioned something about the bear being wary. The thing about a deer, a big buck, and again, my buddy Brian was talking about this. A 5-year-old buck is a smart buck, right? So everybody wants to shoot a nice older buck. Super smart. They understand how to stay alive. A bear is a whole nother level because a lot of the big bears in Jersey are 10, 14 years old. They've been around. They've seen everything. So a 5-year-old buck and a bear like that, and the bear the nose is better. I mean, almost everything about it. But the other things that the bear has really makes it a really tough animal to get, especially a mature one, because of how many years they are,
So do you eat them?
Yeah, definitely. If you like me personally, I don't really hunt anything I don't eat. But the bear I shot, I ate. I'll tell you a funny story real quick. So I shoot the bear. I get the bear mounted, but obviously before that, the butcher gets me the meat back. And this particular butcher, beside giving me the meat, he made some summer sausage out of it, right? So it's like a salami type of thing. And that summer sausage was the biggest hit, and I'll tell you why. I used to bring it to the firehouse when I was working, right? So we used to work shifts. So I'd go in at like 5 at night. We're going to work till the next morning. So I'd go in there, you're in plain clothes, you're hanging out at the kitchen table, drinking coffee. I'd bring a half of that summer sausage in, and I'd cut it up, lay it on a plate, and the guys would look at me because they all know I hunt. They've seen me boiling deer skulls in the kitchen, and they're like, dude, what is that? And I'd be like, try it. No, I'm not trying unless you tell me. And I would tell them it was a bear, and they were like, no way, we're not touching that thing. Usually within about an hour, that whole thing was gone because the first guy took a chance.
Yeah.
Wow, this is pretty good. But yeah, and they would eat the whole thing, and then guys would ask for steaks, bear steaks. And then throughout my years of hunting, I've been hunting since I was 10, 25 years in the fire department, guys would ask me, hey, if you shoot a deer, can I pay for the butchering and take the meat? And I started doing that for guys when I was younger, and I had the ability to shoot 19, 20 deer a year, drag them out of the woods and get them to the butcher. But guys loved it. They would split the meat with another fireman, and they were eating good, healthy venison.
Yeah.
So pretty much now I do that for like 1 or 2 guys. The rest of the meat is for my family, me, and, I don't go as crazy as I used to go with the hunting. I like to be in the woods. I like to enjoy nature. I like to try to get a nice buck every year and a little bit of meat for the freezer and donate 1 or 2 to the fire department. And that's really it, because my business keeps me so busy that I get to live vicariously through people that are shooting animals, and they're calling me up going, dude, that buck I've been after for years, you know, what you told me, or the advice you gave me and the product helped me. So I really live through that as well. And that's a benefit I never thought of when I got into this.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I love your product. And I can see where that would be, you know, like really cool when someone says, "Hey, Steve, he went right to it," you know.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
you know, he's sniffing the branch. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it was awesome. You know, that's
Yeah.
got to be for you. Like, yes, yeah, you know.
It is.
So
Listen, I make a couple bucks doing it, but that is worth it so much more.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, my wife every year, my wife will be like, who are, you know, because the Christmas cards come from our family and friends, and they get hung up, all the Christmas cards. That's my wife. She does a great job at that. And my kid, and my wife will be like, who's this? Who's sending us these Christmas cards? Brett, I literally get Christmas cards from people who I don't even know. And I've found out, like, the next year my wife does my orders for me, and she'll be like, is this that guy? He's got that crazy last name. Does this guy send you a Christmas card? I said, I guess so. So it is really cool, and it's not something I expected. But the bottom line is we love hunting. So whatever feedback we get from hunting, I
Right.
mean, is, you know.
Yeah.
A couple last things I wanted to ask you. Just out of curiosity, do you mount? Are you like do you mount everything you get, or not? Do you Euro mount, or?
I early on, I mounted a few, but you know, I would say there's probably a couple that I haven't mounted. You know, just cut the antlers off. But I haven't. At this point, you kind of touched on yourself. I mean, at some point, you go. It's not about. I mean, I want to kill a good buck, but
Yeah.
I generally say I want to go bigger than the last one. You know, I just don't want to kill a buck just to do it. Now, if I want to get meat, for sure, you know, I can take a doe early, and do that. Not that I wouldn't eat the buck, but you know, I'm a lot more selective now, and so when I do harvest a buck, yeah, I do mount. And my wife will not let me put them up in the house.
Yeah.
So my shed has got people walk in, they're like, "Oh man," you know. The problem is they collect dust and the elements are, you know. So, but yeah, I keep saying someday I'm gonna get my own hunting room where I can put them up, but I haven't gotten there yet.
I think you deserve it. I don't know if the wife agrees,
Well,
but
I agree, but
yeah.
she begs to differ.
Yeah, I know how it is. But when I used to butcher my deer right in my garage, I still have the gambrel hanging and all. It turned into I had to make sure I told my wife before she came home that there was a deer hanging, and it got to be so difficult. This year I showed my son how a lot of times I'll butcher them right on my tailgate. Once I get home, I butcher them right on the tailgate. It's a lot of work, but I don't even have to hang them in the house anymore. And I said to my son, I said, you know, he's 21, so he's a big time hunter too. And I said, let me show you how to do a tailgate butcher, just in case you end up where you can't hang it, because I can't hang it in a shed in Jersey because the bear will tear the shed apart to get to the deer. So, you know, but yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Well, Brett, listen, I want to thank you, man. I mean, I feel like, you know, I've been a fan for years, and, you know, I've never really, like I said to you earlier, never really saw a lot of you talking about hunting. And I've been told that you were really, you know, really into the hunting aspect, and obviously are. So I appreciate you giving me some time, and
You bet,
people are going to
Steve.
enjoy this.
Yeah, this was fun. Some good stories, reminiscing a little bit. And again, you know, as I said earlier, I use your product. You know, you've sent me a little bit of everything, and I certainly appreciate it. But I appreciate you having me on. I always love talking hunting.
That's why I started doing this, to talk hunting with people who don't really always get the chance to talk hunting. So with that being said, thanks a million for this. Best of luck to you with with your future hunting. You got one heck of a piece of property, it sounds like, and you're hopefully it sounds like you're really enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, we talked about earlier. I think talked about it offline. It's depressing. The only thing bad about hunting is it has the
Yes.
end.
Yes. Good point. Good point. And before I say goodbye to you, I got to ask one thing. Do you do any fishing?
You know what? I got 2 lakes on my property, stocked them both. I have never thrown a rod and reel.
Really?
My older brother is a fisherman. My younger
Right.
brother was a fisherman. My dad was a fisherman. Uh,
Right.
I think the story that kind of tells you a lot. My dad loaded me and my 2 brothers up. We put the boat in right out in front of our house. It was one of these all day things. I didn't know this. After a couple hours, I was like, Dad, I'm hungry. And he's like, you wait till you get home. And I said, okay. Well, it's right at dark and we still haven't got home. And I'm starving to death. And I said, I'll never go again. And I've never been back. It's a little slow pace for me. And people say, well, sitting in a tree stand can't be much better.
Yeah.
You pick your poison. And so I don't, and I think part of the reason with fishing, I don't like fish. I don't like to eat fish, which surprises people, but it's just not my thing. So
Gotcha.
yeah, not my deal.
Boy, it's funny because when people hear you say you got stocked lakes on your property and you haven't thrown a line in, what that tells me is no wonder you get depressed after hunting season ends.
Exactly.
And before we say goodbye, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up one point that I just thought about, just to try to set the tone so people understand what I'm talking about. Brett and myself, we've never spoken on the phone before. I mean, we've emailed back a few times, and you appreciate you use the hunting product and all, but I gotta bring something up real quick because it's something that I took a chance asking you, and you did for me that was an incredible gesture on your part. And I'm going to make it short because we're going to wrap this up. A couple of years ago, and I don't even know if Brett knows what I'm about to say, but a couple of years ago, my son was a sophomore in high school playing football. He was basically the backup, 3 deep on the backup quarterback list, right? We used to call him Shim Shams. When I played high school football, the guy that was just kind of standing there, so, for the we called him the Shim Sham. So my son knew no plays. They didn't teach him any plays, but he kind of could throw the ball, so they had him as a backup, and he was backup to an older kid and a D1 prospect who was a stud quarterback. So he was fine with that because that was just what he did during practice, and then he played some defense. Make a long story short, the stud quarterback gets hurt. The backup quarterback goes in. I believe it was the same game or the next game. I told my son, you're now number 2. He goes, yeah, well, I'm not really number 2. I don't even know when he plays. They don't teach him to me. So the number 2 quarterback, who's now the starter, gets hurt. Halfway through a game, they bring my son into quarterback. Me and my wife, and we look at each other, we're like,
oh boy,
he's doomed. He's doomed. He doesn't really even know a play. So make a long story short, he survives that game. They obviously lose, but he survives it. I reach out to you, and I don't know if you remember this, Brett, but I reached out to Brett because there was a lot of anxiety in my, then I guess he was 17. No, I'm sorry, he was a sophomore. So he's like 14 or 15, right? I reached out to you unknowing to my son, and I asked you, Brett, in an email. I said, what can is there anything I can do? And you wrote back something that I was supposed to give my son to read. And I'm not going to repeat it, but I did let my son read it. So as a sophomore, 3 deep as a quarterback, he ends up being the starter for the remaining part of the season. He gets this email from Brett Favre. Brett, he read it. I mean, we had tears in our eyes. It was about 3 or 4 lines that you wrote that were poignant. Hit the point. Awesome. Gave that kid a ton of inspiration, and he ended up taking him to the state playoffs that year. Unfortunately, the coach decided that the hurt quarterback that was now feeling better put him in on the first state game, and that was over.
Yeah.
But what you did, honestly, is something that me and my son, my whole family never forget.
Yeah.
That was so nice of you, and it meant so much to him. But more importantly, it helped him.
Yeah.
It helped him go to practice, and basically what you said was just words of inspiration that were right on the money.
Well,
So
yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I vaguely remember that.
yes,
When you started telling the story, it came back to me. But that makes me feel good. So that's the least I could do.
yeah, and that's Brett Favre right there, and that's just awesome. I mean, you didn't even know me, and you did that for my
Yeah.
son. You obviously didn't know my son either, but he's got it printed out on his wall.
Yeah.
And
Well, I've been there.
It got
So
yeah.
that's what I tell people. You see the end. There was times that I didn't know if I'd ever see a field. So
Right.
I've been there.
Right.
So
Right.
anytime I can help, I'm
Yeah.
more than willing.
Yeah, well, thank you. All right, Brett, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to say goodbye to you. It was awesome hunting with you. I loved it.
Yeah, same here, Steve.
And who knows, maybe we'll do it again in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Stay well.
All right, you too, Steve.
Take care. Bye now. Thank you to all of our sponsors: Signal 11 Lures, Lip Glue, New Jersey Multi-Species Podcast, Sever Broadheads, Jersey Fluke Bellies, Favorite Fishing Rods, Timberlife Outdoors, and Buck Knives.